All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin. All right, we are back again on the other side of the coin. We've got the lovely Adam Newson back again for the second time in this channel. I'm very, very excited. You know, it's always going to be a very good conversation when Adam's here, and he was there at Stamford Bridge yesterday. Obviously, the match wasn't too much to talk about. It was probably one of the worst performances I've ever seen. But, you know, mind you, it is understandable why that kind of match happened. And obviously, Thomas Tuchel talked about it as well. We'll speak in details in that. But before we get into all of that, first of all, Adam, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. A little tired, but not too bad other than that.
Yeah, of course. It's been one crazy evening for you since yesterday, and for Chelsea fans worldwide, not just the local ones, but all over the world. I woke up something around 4:30 a.m. this morning, and then just a whole heap of news. I had no idea there was that protest that was happening outside, so I had to catch up with all of that before the match, and then obviously all the different images, you know, Peter Cech coming out and whatnot. Let's talk a little bit about that, Adam, before we get into the match. Obviously, let's look at it from a, I suppose, chronological order. Obviously, there was the protest. You were there. A lot of other Chelsea fans were there. A couple of Chelsea mates that feature in this channel were there as well. Talk us a little bit about the protest, Adam. I mean, what was the atmosphere like? And it seemed like it was, the fans were quite adamant that they wanted an answer, although a lot of people sort of said that they didn't feel that they were going to get, a statement so quickly from the club that, they are looking to withdraw, which pretty much happened during the protests as well. But what was the initial intention? Just to go out there and just voice the opinion, or make sure that the withdrawal happens?
I think it was just to go there and voice their opinion and show the level of feeling against what Chelsea had signed up for here. I mean, this was arguably the biggest potential change in football for 30 odd years since the restructuring of the Premier League or the introduction of the Premier League, especially in English football. And for reasons which I feel are pretty obvious at this point, it wasn't a plan that was universally liked by supporters. We all love the fact that Chelsea have to step up. The examples last night, we all like the fact that Chelsea have to deliver against Brighton, and if they don't, there are consequences. We like the fact that there's jeopardy. We don't, this is, personally, I don't ever want to see Chelsea play in a competition where it doesn't matter if they win or lose. I want Chelsea to have to deliver. I want to see Chelsea prove that they deserve to be in the best competitions and in the finals. I don't want Chelsea just to be given this, because that isn't, personally, there's no enjoyment in that for me. So I think supporters went last night to just voice their displeasure at what Chelsea had decided to do. I don't think anyone probably expected something to happen so quickly, or to get Chelsea to pull out of it so quickly. I mean, there were already noises that Chelsea were having second thoughts about having signed up for it within 24 hours of the announcement. Chelsea didn't push for this. It wasn't their plan that they were really pushing forward. They were presented with it and agreed to it, probably because they were scared of missing out if they didn't. I personally don't think that really makes much of a difference at this point. Chelsea could have really taken a stand here. I understand from a business point of view why they didn't and why they did get on board, but from a sort of moral point of view, I feel they probably made the wrong decision. But I mean, the events of last night or yesterday evening were fascinating, and I think as you say, you can see on the video there were a lot of fans back at Stamford Bridge for the first time in 13 months. This was the first chance. This was the first chance supporters had to all group together and to show their feelings on certain things, and to show what they'd been missing. And I feel that environment was really beneficial. And I think people were angry and frustrated, of course, but at the same point, there was a lot of people being very proud of what they were doing. There were a lot of people feeling very happy to be back in that Chelsea community, that Chelsea feel, which is why there were lots of chants against the Super League, against Florentino Perez, but at the same time there were lots of classic Chelsea chants. You know, there was a Super Frank chant for Frank Lampard. There was a Dennis Wise chant. You know, it was a grouping of Chelsea fans which we just haven't had for so long. So, I mean, it was a great evening, and you know, we can talk about the Petr Cech moment, which was an incredible moment, really. I mean,
did you witness that Petr Cech moment? Were you there at that point?
I had just sort of arrived or got into the sort of area where it happened just as he was walking away. So I spoke to a couple of people, obviously, and what had seemingly happened is because of where Chelsea fans were, he couldn't enter Stamford Bridge in his car, or in the car that he was arriving in. So he basically got out of his car, walked up the Fulham Road, dropped his bag over the barrier, and then went in to speak to the fans. And at that point, it was probably the first indication that Chelsea were pulling out of this, because he did say, "Give it time." You know, we're working.
So iconic that those messages will ring for a long time. How he comes out and said, "Give it time, give it time." It was crazy.
I think, you know, Petr Cech is a Chelsea legend. There's no doubt about that. But I think he's only enhanced his legacy last night, because he could have probably hidden away like all the other sort of people in charge. You know, we haven't had any comments from the people in charge still, but he was the one who fronted up, who really stepped into that crowd and tried to placate them and tell everybody, you know, Chelsea are listening. We are listening. And he deserves huge credit. He deserves so much credit for doing that.
No, absolutely. As everyone can see, all the live videos from your Twitter page, guys, massive shout out. Please go to Adam's page, follow. You'll see all the you know, craziness of yesterday's protest from his page, and there's lots of stuff there from Adam's page. And yeah, look, Adam, at the end of the day, ultimately we were the catalyst. Chelsea were the catalyst to get this ball rolling. Obviously, thank you to everyone that's gone out there and protested. Thank you to everyone in social media that's done all the hashtags and the tweets and tagging the players and really voicing their opinion to get to let the clubs know that we're definitely not happy with it. And obviously, off the back of that, we saw Jordan Henderson from Liverpool putting out the tweet that they don't want any of this. And yeah, straight after Chelsea withdrew from it, Manchester City withdrew from it, and then obviously we started to see everyone sort of trickle down. I just want to say though, obviously now it looks like it seems like it was a crazy nightmare for about 3 days. I mean, every fan was so distressed. I was feeling so weird moving into that Brighton game. I didn't even get to do a proper preview. I just did a 10-minute preview. I just didn't even know what to say in my preview. I was like, look, as far as I'm concerned as a fan, I still think that we should go for a top 4 and we should try and aim to win that game. And I just felt very strange that I didn't know where it was all going, but luckily it's all done and dusted. I do want to say one thing though, Adam, and everyone's been talking about this, that Pep Guardiola, after that, he did mention that let's not, obviously what happened, the whole Super League and all of that, that's total BS. It's not a good way to do whatever they were trying to do. But he was saying, Pep Guardiola, that why did it get to this situation? Let's not forget the fact that UEFA's got some major issues and it needs to get sorted out. And he was talking about how, why is there's all of these league games that's happening. And he brought up I don't know if you saw this particular video from Pep Guardiola, and he was saying that, Lewandowski as an example, how he got injured just in the last international break. And, he couldn't play in the Champions League and whatnot. And Pep Guardiola was saying they have a responsibility as well. UEFA needs to have a responsibility on players and how the club scene is and whatnot. And he was also gone on to say that they're not saints. UEFA are not saints, and we need this to be fixed up. We will get to the whole new format things as well, which is another crazy thing that's gone around. But what do you think about why did it get to that situation? Obviously, money is a big factor. Some of the big clubs, they think that they should get more money for their involvement in UEFA. But do you think UEFA is all, they're a bit of an angel in this whole piece of things as well?
No, not at all. Look, UEFA aren't perfect. FIFA aren't perfect. The Premier League are not perfect. I mean, none of these organizations are perfect or make decisions that necessarily always benefit the members within them. This wasn't UEFA a great sort of moment. that isn't the case. UEFA does have problems, and they're trying their best. I think they're trying their best to placate the bigger clubs. They are doing Champions League reforms. They are changing the way the Champions League is going to be structured, and they've already conceded more prize money to the bigger clubs. So I think UEFA are trying to keep these guys on side, but I guess the problem not the problem, but the reality of UEFA is, UEFA is a European football governing body. It is not there to simply placate a certain amount of very, very top clubs who have very, very ambitious plans.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was quite. How did we get to this point? I mean, I'm not actually really that sure, because obviously, it was only last week that apparently Ed Woodward spoke to Ceferin at UEFA and agreed to the Champions League proposals, and 2 days later the Super League is announced. I genuinely, how did we get from there to there? So it's a huge double cross from a lot of these clubs at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, things do have to change. Football does have to evolve. Guardiola is spot on. UEFA does have a duty of care to its players and its members, and more does have to be done to work alongside everybody. But what we can't really have again is what we had on Sunday. We can't have, this has been threatened for so long now, and they finally pushed the button, and the reality is they shouldn't be able to push it again. They pushed it once, they've seen what happened, they backed down within 24 hours. Within 48 hours. So yeah, what happens next is going to be very interesting. I mean, should Chelsea, any other clubs be punished? Probably is the reality. They I don't think Chelsea can argue if they do get punished, or any of the other clubs can argue if there is a punishment on them. What that would be, who knows?
At the end of the day, it was a coup. They really were trying to leave the league and create their own little thing. So, and there was an article that just came out from Sky stating that the other 14 clubs are a bit divided at the moment, whether they want to punish the 6 clubs or not. From your perspective, do you think there should be a punishment, or do you sort of look at it that, look, they made a mistake, they realized that, and they corrected it, they listened to the fans, and let's just move on, let's carry on with the season and finish things off? Or do you think, you've tried to create a bit of a coup here, you've made the fans feel absolutely rubbish over the last 3 days, you deserve to be punished now? What's your stance on it?
Personally, I don't think you can just make a decision like this, apologize, and expect it to all be okay. To be honest, this is what I'm trying to teach my 2-year-old at the moment. You can't do something and just say sorry afterwards and expect it not to have any repercussions. Obviously, the Premier League's in a difficult spot, and the other Premier League clubs are in a really difficult spot, because at the end of the day, they need these 6 clubs. These are the biggest clubs, and like it or not, they're the biggest draws in the Premier League. And there's, they are why a lot of the money is in the Premier League. Add in the fact that it's very competitive and unpredictable. That's obviously a huge selling point as well. But these clubs are very important. I really don't know what punishment it should be, and I think it's a really, really difficult one, because at the end of the day, if you did something like a points deduction, that does impact the club, because there's obviously the chance they'll miss out on European football and whatnot. But that also really impacts the players and Thomas Tuchel in this instance from a Chelsea perspective. And these guys had no say. These guys weren't consulted, and it would be unfair. It would be unfair on them for Chelsea to potentially get into the top 4, having worked really hard, only to then lose that because of something that the board decided. So how Chelsea get punished, I really don't know. How it's done in a fair way, not to punish those who weren't involved, basically, within the club.
Do you reckon monetary punishment is the way to go, or that's not severe enough?
I mean, it depends how much you can fine Chelsea, because these big clubs already have a lot of money. Man City are bankrolled by a state. Chelsea have a billionaire owner. FSG are loaded, and the Glazers have money, even though they don't like to spend it. And there's money within all these clubs. So, I mean, how big a financial punishment would you have to give them for it to really take notice? I mean, yeah, it would be nice, and I'm not sure how possible it is, but it'd be great to see some legislation brought in on this, that if a club ever does want to leave the Premier League, that they have to pay the Premier League such an absorbent figure that they just wouldn't do it. If you have to pay £500 million, for instance, to leave the Premier League, maybe that is enough of a deterrent to try and stop these clubs from ever trying this again.
No, absolutely. Before we move on to the whole UCL new format, which I want to discuss with you as well, just quickly on the players that you've just mentioned, players and managers not knowing. I find it so crazy how obviously fans are a massive, massive stakeholder in all of this, right? Without fans, there is nothing. But at the end of the day as well, without the players, who are the biggest commodity in all of this, because they're the ones who are playing out there, they're the ones who are doing stuff, and the managers as well. I just find it strange how all of these conversations were happening and all of these club owners got out there and signed all of this stuff apparently. And initially it looked like, Super League was going to happen and whatnot. And how none of the players knew anything about it. Like, I find that quite baffling that they're going ahead and doing such projects without even consulting to the players that, guys, what do you think? We are thinking about doing this. Do you have any reservations? Because if we don't get your buy-in, well, then we can't really do it, right? So what's your stance on that? Like, how maddening is it that these players and the managers had no idea about this?
Yeah, it's extremely maddening. And I felt incredibly sorry for Thomas Tuchel on Monday in his press conference that he was the guy having to front this as a Chelsea representative. He was the guy being asked questions. There wasn't Mourinho, there wasn't Bruce Buck, there wasn't Guy Lawrence, there wasn't Roman Abramovich. It was Thomas Tuchel having to answer incredibly difficult questions on something he had no say on. And that's maybe not, for Thomas Tuchel, he's been there 3 months. That's maybe not as surprising that he wasn't involved in this, but the fact Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool wasn't consulted, given everything he's achieved there. And, he had to be obviously careful with what he said on his pre-match interview the other night, but I think it was quite clear he wasn't particularly happy with the decision.
He was mad.
And I think the reality of this is that it was just arrogance on the part of the people involved. They thought they could do this and that there wouldn't be as big a pushback as there was. Or maybe they just thought people will just forget about it in a few days and get on with football because that's what football does. But I think they would have known if you'd spoken to the supporters, if they'd spoken to the players, if they'd spoken to the coaches. I think they would have known the reaction they would have got, which is probably why they didn't do it.
Yeah, this comment here from Tyrone, if they asked the players, they would have said no and it would have destroyed their plan. Pretty much sums it up. Let's talk about the new UCL format, which many are saying this has a flavor of Super League in it. Like, they're going around proposing that in 2024, there'll be the two coefficients, highest coefficients will get an automatic selection. So the example they're sort of throwing out, Madrid Zone is the particular Twitter page that's been updating all of this stuff. Kudos to Madrid Zone for providing all of that. And they were saying that, for example, if Man United comes sixth in the Premier League table and they are one of those highest coefficient teams, then they automatically qualify for the Champions League. So yes, we've gone away from the 12 founding members to now 2 that just get in anyway, depending on the coefficient values that's been given. I think it's over 5 years span. They look at that particular team and how they've been doing. But I don't know how I feel about this either, Adam. I'm like, well, these are the reasons why we got into this mess now and we've protested. And I'm not really sure if I'm happy with this new format. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, it's still fundamentally wrong that you can earn a place in the biggest club competition in Europe without having necessarily qualified for it. But this is a case of UEFA trying to give big clubs a backdoor into their competition still. And, this is what I mean. UEFA are trying to really to find ways to keep these big clubs happy. They're trying to find ways for them to circumvent having to qualify. But Milan, for instance, AC Milan are the best example of this. They feel they are historic. They are a historically big club, but their UEFA coefficient at the moment is down in the 50s because they haven't been involved in Champions League for years, and they haven't been. They haven't even done that well in the Europa League when they've been involved. So you can have your high coefficient, you can have your sort of wild card entries into a Champions League based on coefficient, but at the same point, you still have to deliver when you're in those competitions.
Yeah.
And AC Milan haven't been doing that. And, even with this coefficient thing, they wouldn't get into the Champions League at the moment. There are far more clubs ahead of them in the rankings. I don't like it. I would like to think, because these obviously Champions League reforms came about before the clubs tried to take their ball and run away. I'd like to think UEFA may have a bit more power now to try and say, well, no, look, you tried to do your big thing and it's failed spectacularly. So you're going to bend to our rules a bit more. Whether or not UEFA aren't perfect, but I think it's important that we do have a governing body running this competition rather than a certain set of clubs who have anointed themselves the sort of gatekeepers of Europe's biggest prize. But yeah, it doesn't sit well with me, and I don't think there should ever be any entrant into a competition that hasn't qualified there through their performances in the last season. I don't think they should be involved.
I mean, how it would be so sad for, let's just say, argument's sake, this season, right? You see teams like West Ham in the Premier League trying their level best to be in the top four. Leicester's obviously, doing a magnificent job to still be in the top four for almost the entire season. You've got teams like Everton who are just in and around that top four sort of situation as well. How sad would it be if one of those teams were to make top four, but they miss out because, let's just say, Liverpool has a very good coefficient over the last 5 years and they've missed out on the top four, and now Liverpool's in and they're not in. I don't know the whole ins and outs with the new UCL format at the moment. Is that something that they can that people can sort of look at them and say, look, we don't agree on that needs to be removed? Or is that now set in stone that is exactly what's going to happen starting from 2024?
I don't think it's set in stone. I think the clubs have sort of agreed towards this because of the meeting they had. They had last week meetings and they confirmed it on Monday morning when all the sort of world was collapsing in on itself with European football. I don't know if UEFA do have the power now, as I say, to try and maybe change things. Obviously, all these 12 clubs resigned from the ECA, so they're going to have to apply to get back in. Honestly, it seems like such a mess at the moment that whilst these Champions League plans do look like they are going to be put in place, I mean, I wouldn't like to 100% guarantee that is going to be the case. And I mean, just going back to the coefficient thing, I was literally just looking here. I mean, the grim reality of this is at the moment, and it may change next season because of how Chelsea have done in the Champions League this season. But at the moment, Chelsea have a lower UEFA coefficient rating than Arsenal. So,
how's that possible? Arsenal have not even made in the Champions League for a couple of seasons now in a row.
Yeah. Well, I guess Chelsea were out of Europe one season when we finished 10th. And obviously we had a poor couple of years in the Champions League. When we didn't get past the last 16, and Arsenal have been getting far in the Europa League, even though they don't do anything when they do get into finals. But I mean, the reality of that is say those rules were in place this season. Chelsea finished 4th, Arsenal 5th. Arsenal go into the next season.
Oh my God!
League. So
it'd be madness.
Exactly. So again, it's fundamentally wrong that you can get a backdoor entry into the top competition if you haven't earned it, and hopefully, in sort of months to come, maybe we'll see further reforms with UEFA in a bit of a stronger position now against these top clubs to make tough decisions. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Look, I'm just glad for the time being that the European Super League is done and dusted. It looks like it's going to be finished. I mean, obviously, the 6 Premier League clubs have pulled out, withdrawn. I don't know, Real Madrid and Barcelona, I don't know what they're expecting. They're still carrying on. I don't know how you have a Super League without all the other teams and just Real Madrid and Barcelona. You might as well just stay in the La Liga and just continue on. But that is pretty much that. Let's talk a little bit about the match now, the Chelsea versus Brighton match. I mean, look, Thomas Tuchel came out post-match saying that, we're human beings. It affected them over the last two days. I saw it in the press conference. Every question to Thomas Tuchel was about the European Super League. I mean, Adam, there are a few fans that were very critical about the particular match performance. I straight away said in my review that I don't know how to judge that particular match, because you look at the match we played against Man City literally not that many days ago, and how excellent we were in that match. Counter-pressing, pressing, passing, defending, scoring with Ziyech's goal as well, and we looked like we should have scored 2 or 3. We looked so good in that match, and then we played against Brighton, and straight away it felt like these players are not in it. They're just mentally not in it. I feel like it's drained them out just as much as it's drained us out. So do you kind of feel that that particular game, as much as it hurts because there is a top 4 race at the moment, and that win would have been so vital for us, but do you feel that from a fan's perspective that perhaps we can give them a pass, because at the end of the day they are human beings and it would have affected them 100%?
Yeah, exactly. I think the extenuating circumstances of the last couple of days, you have to give these guys a break. You know, they're not footballing robots. They have feelings and emotions and feel stresses and you know, tension the same way as we all do. And you know, Thomas Tuchel said we tried to create an environment where it wasn't, you know, a big thing, but it was impossible because, you know, everyone was talking about it. And when you've got that on your mind, when, you know, there's being claims made that you might not be able to play for your country anymore if this goes ahead, you might not, you might get kicked out of the Champions League that you've worked so hard to get into a semi-final for. I mean, yeah, you can't judge last night's game as a performance without having all that in your mind. Yes, Chelsea weren't great. Yes, they're probably lucky to get a draw given the chances Brighton had.
Brighton should have won, honestly.
Yeah, they had really great chances at the end, and you know, it wasn't a great performance by Chelsea, but you know what, like that's why I think it showed why we don't need a European Super League. Chelsea needed to win last night. They couldn't step up to the plate and do it for many reasons, but they couldn't do it, and so you know they didn't win. And now we go to West Ham on Saturday, and it's a huge game, and it's not against Barcelona, or Real Madrid, or X, Y, and Z. It's against West Ham United. You can have big games against West Ham that mean something, and Saturday's game means something, and that's going to make it interesting, and you know is going to draw us all in and make us feel, you know, passionate and emotional about it because it means something. And yeah, you know, hopefully Chelsea can produce a better performance against West Ham than they did against Brighton. You know, they did put a lot into the Man City game at the weekend, and even against Porto a little over a week ago. You know, they put in 2 hard performances, so I think you can let them off, and you know, you win at West Ham on Saturday, and it's still very much in Chelsea's control of the top 4 race. So yeah, I wouldn't be too doom and gloom about things just yet.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not at all doom and gloom. I completely sympathise with the manager and the players. You could see that every fundamental aspect of our game was just not evident. Before we sort of touch on to that West Ham game and get back to the whole reality of talking football again and forget about all of this craziness that's happened, you were obviously at the match, Adam. How was the vibe, the mood whilst the game was going on? How did you feel with, obviously you would have had other reporters there as well, Adam, in and around you. What was the mood like during the game?
Very strange. I was leaving the ground with one of my colleagues from a different newspaper afterwards, and he said he may have watched about 10 minutes because of everything else that was going on with the news that Ed Woodward's resigning at Manchester United, with the news that City are pulling out, with the news that the other English clubs are going to prepare a statement to pull out. I mean, it was hard to concentrate on the game, to be completely honest, because it felt like what was happening away from Stamford Bridge last night was more important in the wider football community. So, yeah, it was a very, very weird situation, and yeah, it was hard to watch the game and stay really focused on it. It's because so much was happening. And to be fair, you know, Ben White was sent off for Brighton last night, which I only realised about 5 minutes after it happened because I was busy. I was busy typing up something else, and then I saw he got booked, and then I was like, okay, back. But you know, and then it's like you realise, oh no, that was a second yellow.
It was a second booking. Yeah.
It takes you that little bit of time to really put it all together in your head when there's so much else going on. So yeah, it was a very weird experience. Yeah, I can't lie about that.
No, 100%. I was watching the match, but just like you guys, I had the Twitter page open on the side and just following everything because Jordan Henderson had tweeted midway through the game. Man City stuff was coming along, and it was just, you're right, I wasn't concentrating at the game as well. And I think you can imagine if the fans are feeling like this, how the players are probably feeling as well. They probably had their mind in many different places. But enough about all of that. Let's now focus back into reality and how things really should be. I was just saying in the review that, teams that are going to play in the next few days, you've got Leicester playing, you've got Man City playing, especially Leicester. It's timely because all of this Super League stuff is sort of fading away and it's going away, and they can now sort of concentrate on football, because I feel like it definitely did affect Liverpool against Fulham. It 100% affected us on our performance. But someone like Leicester, who's in the top four, they can now really look into this particular fixture and not worry about all of this other stuff that's happening all around the world. And they can really capitalize on this moment. I almost feel like had the Chelsea game just been a couple of days later, maybe it would have been far better for the players mentally. Just quickly on that, the Leicester match, before we touch on the whole West Ham situation for us, do you think, for Leicester and their mindsets and their players, like this is perfect now? They can just go out there and capitalize the fact that Chelsea's dropped points as well, Liverpool's dropped points, that they can have a bit of breather in that third position?
Yeah, 100%. Yesterday, had the Leicester game been played, there would have been uncertainty over whether or not their game mattered, or whether or not if finishing in the Champions League mattered. I mean, it's what the Chelsea players had to prepare for going into it. It's whether or not any of it mattered. And I mean, yeah, for Leicester, it's great. They know that the European Super League is collapsed. They know that in all likelihood they will be in the Champions League next season if they qualify for the top four. So they know what they have to do and they know what's at stake, which I don't think Chelsea did last night, unfortunately, going into the game. So yeah, I think Leicester have a really good chance to try and open up a gap. Unfortunately, given the circumstances, but at the end of the day, Chelsea's players were put into the position they were put in by the Chelsea board yesterday, and you can only accept that because it was their decision. So,
no, you're right. I just hope that Chelsea board, at the end of the day, they obviously did the right thing, but I wish they realized where they put the team. And it was such a crucial moment in the league and in the season. Champions League semi-finals, FA Cup final just around the corner, top four race, to put the team in such a stressful moment when things were on the rise. I just hope that the board realized that if it somewhat goes pear-shaped from here on in, that this was the point that they marked that down, that that it was on them, and they don't go back to Thomas Tuchel and ask for his explanation as to what happened to the team and what not. Let's talk a little bit about the West Ham game. As we said, let's focus on the football. For me, Adam, that West Ham game, I know a lot of people will say, look, we definitely need a victory, and obviously from there we need to keep winning. No point in beating West Ham and then the following week you don't show up again, and then we're in this particular top four sort of up and down situation. For me, it's a huge game. Obviously, after that, we've got Real Madrid. I'm looking at it as almost like a cup final, Adam. Is that sort of the sense that you're getting? Because I feel like not only it's a derby, it's a London derby, right? But if we knock out West Ham right now, it will put a massive dent on them, because they're the ones immediately just below us. We've just got onto fourth position due to better goal difference against West Ham. If we can completely beat them off, I don't even think draw's a good enough situation for us, because I think West Ham has a very good running of the remaining games. This is probably their last very difficult game, and I think the remaining ones are quite winnable for them. I don't think they have any of the top six teams after this. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty certain they don't have any of the top six teams. How are you looking at this game? Like, surely this is a huge game for both clubs.
Yeah, no, it is. This is a chance for Chelsea to open up a gap, and they need to have that gap because they do have a tricky run in, with Man City and Leicester especially, and Aston Villa away.
Arsenal as well,
and Aston Villa. Chelsea do have difficult games coming up, so yeah, they do have to try and open up a gap. It may even, it may be a 3-point gap, but with the goal difference, that maybe is a 4-point gap. But But yeah, no, this is an important game for Chelsea. West Ham have done far better than I ever expected. Credit to them. I thought, they may have fallen away by now, but they keep on going and they keep on getting results. So this is, it's huge for Chelsea, and it is the start of a very big week. And it would be nice for Chelsea to build some momentum going into that Real Madrid game, which, I mean, that Real Madrid game is huge.
I so want to win that. I so want to smash them, Adam. Real Madrid deserves to be smashed. They're like the biggest enemy, public enemy #1 right now.
Yeah, I mean, Florentino Perez's interview on Monday night, I think, probably alienated a lot of neutral supporters against Real Madrid. I can't imagine many people listened to what he had to say and really enjoyed what he was saying. So, yeah, it's got that added edge to it now. Chelsea haven't played Real Madrid in the Champions League or European Cup before anyway, but now there seems to be a bit more on stake, a bit more at stake. It's not just about beating Real Madrid. It seems like it might be about beating what Real Madrid were trying to do as well. And I think we'll probably get a lot of support from a lot of different clubs' fans for that game now.
No, 100%. Just about West Ham talk that you just made, that is so surprised. I'm surprised as well how I honestly thought they would drift away by now, that they wouldn't be in the mix. What do you think has been the key component here for them to persevere and still be there? Because a lot of people are saying David Moyes, but we've seen David Moyes in Man United. He wasn't the greatest. Obviously, in Everton, he was fantastic to take Everton, a club that was really not doing that well, to take them as one of the top 6 clubs during his time. And since then, I don't think Everton's ever looked the same again. Obviously, now Ancelotti's in there and he's trying to do his best there. What do you think has been the biggest factor for Everton? Do you feel like it's been a mixture of good recruitments, obviously the rise of Declan Rice and a couple other players? Lingard has come in and done well as well. From your perspective, what has gone so right in that particular club?
I think, player recruitment has been quite impressive. As you say, Jesse Lingard's coming in January and has become sensational. He's been in
Ronaldinho
form. And credit to him, credit to David Moyes for being able to bring out the best of him. Thomas Souček is a really, really good player. Kufal, the right back's very good. I mean, it's a very solid West Ham team. They and this is an element of building a team to suit a manager. And David Moyes isn't the most expressive manager. He's not going to get your team playing like vintage Pep Guardiola Barcelona. But if you have the right players in the right system, David Moyes has proven at Everton, if you can give him the right players, he can set up a system that is not maybe the most fun to watch or breathtaking, although West Ham games have had a lot of goals in them recently. But he can produce results, and it's nice to see David Moyes, doing well again, because he did have a few really tough years after going to Manchester United and then Sunderland and whatnot. So it's good to see him enjoying what looks like a good season, but yeah, I mean, they won't be easy to beat, West Ham, even though I think they will be without Craig Dawson, because he was sent off against Newcastle at the weekend. So,
and is Declan Rice back, Adam? He's still injured?
Don't think he's expected to be back. I'm not sure on Mikel Antonio, but he was also absent last weekend, and he's given Chelsea problems in the past. So, I mean, Chelsea seemingly don't have too many injury problems at the moment. Thiago Silva wasn't in the squad last night, but that I think wasn't down to injury. It was just more workload.
Kovacic is probably the only one.
Kovacic is the only one. I mean, Tammy Abraham is completely out of the picture at the moment for reasons that still not entirely sure about why he can't even get on the bench. But there we go. It should be a good game, and Chelsea should have enough to get beyond West Ham. And it'd be nice to see him maybe try and replicate that first 30 minutes against Crystal Palace, because that was probably the most breathtaking football we've seen for some time.
100%. I mean, look, we've beaten West Ham just before Frank Lampard got sacked, and we beat them 3-0. And I don't think we deserve to beat them 3-0, because West Ham was actually playing quite well that game. But hopefully, as you said, West Ham's been leaking a lot of goals. They just lost against Newcastle as well, 3-2. Hopefully we do the job. We definitely need to do the job. Before we wrap things up, we've got just a few more minutes before we finish things off here. through all of this craziness that's been happening, one named Jose Mourinho got sacked throughout this madness. And I do want to get your thoughts on this as well. For me, I've been saying it. Look, everyone probably pictured it as soon as he was hired by Tottenham that it wasn't going to last long. You could see what craziness he did in the second stint for us, the final season. Obviously, the season before that he won, but that final season where he got sacked, it just broke apart from the match day one. I still remember, I think it was Eden Hazard that got injured. He wasn't getting up. And then Eva Canero went to help out and Jose was all mad and whatnot. And then everything just collapsed from there on. It just got worse and worse and worse. He got sacked and he went to Man United. Yeah, somewhat had a successful stint, you could say. I mean, he won a couple of titles there, Europa League, and I think he won the League Cup as well. Yeah. But then that sort of ended very poorly as well. So I always had a picture that with Tottenham, that is exactly what's going to happen. And maybe Spurs probably find themselves with a silverware with the league, but they didn't allow him to get to that League Cup final, which is quite interesting. And now he's obviously gone. From your perspective, Adam, do you feel this man should just not try any more league, management? Just maybe if there is anything that you want to try, just go with an international, maybe just manage Portugal or something like that, or an international team. How do you feel about, Jose Mourinho? Do you feel like his managerial career just put an end to it and just maybe become a pundit as well? I don't know.
I think we've probably seen the last of him in English football at this point as a coach. I don't think there's a big club in English football that would turn to him now. And I don't think his ego would ever let him manage a team, not probably within that top six. To be honest, I don't think he would do what Carlo Ancelotti has done, for instance, and take over an Everton. I don't think he's got that within him. I think I think he's still got a good reputation in Italy because of what he did at Inter Milan, and maybe his style of football and abrasive style of coaching and man management might be a little bit more welcomed in Italy. I mean, I think that's the fundamental point here. It isn't just that Jose is maybe a little bit outdated with his tactics and outlook on football, is that he does seem to fall out with an incredible amount of players nowadays. He doesn't seem to, back in the vintage first Mourinho season at Chelsea, he could challenge players like Joe Cole and he could challenge players like Frank Lampard, and these guys would respond. They would take up the challenge. But now I'm not sure you can be that abrasive with players anymore. I think you do have to be a bit more, like Thomas Tuchel has been. You do have to be a bit more arm around the shoulder, make everyone feel valued, people feel appreciated. Which is, in any job you want to feel appreciated in what you do. So I mean, that shouldn't be a huge surprise that players are like that. What's next for Mourinho? I mean, I really don't know where he goes from here. Yes, maybe international management, because that is about winning in a very short span of time, a lot of the time, which I feel he could get a buy-in from a group to do. Or maybe punditry. I thought he was very good when he was on the pundit.
I liked him.
Whether or not he goes into that full time, I don't know. He seems to really enjoy coaching still and has a passion for it, and credit to him for that. You should always do what you're passionate about. But it'll be a very interesting step. But it's a shame. It is a shame to see what's happened to him in the last few years, just because of how important he was at the very beginning of the Abramovich era in asserting Chelsea at the top of, or near the top of European football anyway.
100%. I almost feel like with Jose Mourinho, all of that legacy that he's created, it's slowly getting tarnished away, and he just needs to stop now. But enough about all of that. We've talked about many, many things. I feel like it's been a very tiring week, and we all deserve to have a bit of rest. And I feel like everything is just going to come into excitement again over the next couple of days once all of this is sort of left behind. Adam, once again, thank you so much for your time. Please, ladies and gentlemen that are watching right now, and we'll watch it down the track as well, in the description, you'll see all of Adam's socials there. Go out then follow. Adam's got some latest articles coming up almost every other hour. So just go out there, have a read. They're very, very good articles as well. Perhaps, definitely we'll probably have Adam back either next week or the week after, once sort of all of this excitement comes back again and we can talk about proper footballing stuff. But yeah, Adam, anything to look out for from your perspective? Articles or any interviews or anything like that?
I mean, I think it was scheduled for 1 p.m. So just as I was jumping on here, I published a piece with quite a few, where I've spoken to quite a few of the people who were at the protest yesterday before the game, just to get their views on and feelings and what it was like to be there, what it was like when the news came through that Chelsea were pulling out, what it was like seeing Petr Cech try and sort out the problems. So yeah, I've got a big piece on that with lots of different voices from people who were there. So yeah, please read that if you can.
Nice. Yeah, do provide that to me, Adam, and I'll put it into the description so that everyone can have access to that. So yeah, guys, until next time, thank you so much. Probably might not have a stream tomorrow, but we will come back for the preview of the West Ham game straight after the press conference, which is generally, I think, Friday. It will be around 1:30-ish sort of time. And straight after that, we'll do a preview. But yeah, I might just do a short video tomorrow. So do look out for that. So yeah, until next time, everyone, take care and see you.